Hi and welcome to this business process analysis introduction video. In this video, we will look at the steps you can take to analyze a business process and perform a return on investment calculation using the Business Process Analysis Calculator. The AmdoSoft BPA calculator looks at the feasibility of an automation project, the cost benefits and most importantly the human time that can be won for the organization. Let's have a look at the steps that are involved. Once you have identified one or more potential process candidates, the first step is to perform the manual work analysis. For this, it is useful to name the process and roughly document the individual steps within the process. At this stage we are trying to get an estimate, so don't worry about going into all the details. Open the AmdoSoft Business Process Analysis ROI calculator and let's look at an example process. Once you open the analysis workbook, you will see that Process 1, which is an accounts onboarding process, is already completed. All the steps you need to take are laid out and described below. There are altogether 6 steps we need to expand, and after this, we will have the high-level results at the top and the ROI calculation results in the analysis results section. Let's start with step 1 and expand this section. Here you can add the information about the time and people that are involved in the manual execution of this particular process. You can see that it takes on average 4 hours per week and 3 people to complete this process. Furthermore, about 3.5 hours a week in total are spent on fixing errors. Next, we look at the percentage of a process that can be automated, as usually there are still some manual steps that need to be completed. We also need to define a cost of the manual work, which can be defined by taking an average hourly cost of the people involved in the process. This cost can be calculated by considering all aspects of human capital including recruiting, training, salary and benefits, and defining an appropriate hourly cost. People are the most valuable of all resources a company can have. Freeing up human time is actually the main benefit of automation. That's why in the following sections, we also want to define the human skills that are currently involved in this mundane and repetitive process. Now that we have looked at step 1, let's expand the next section, the feasibility checklist. Here we look at some of the main questions you need to ask when considering how easy it is to automate a process using RPA. Data needs to be digital in order for the bot to be able to process it. So if documents are on paper, then these need to be scanned and the data needs to be extracted. If we select No here, you will see in the summary that further analysis is required. AmdoSoft can help with you find a solution if required. Sometimes data is visible on screen but you cannot select or copy it. This usually happens if the information is actually displayed as an image. This means that the process can take more time to implement. However, B4 has an integrated OCR function to read that data. Next, human judgment cannot be automated, so if some of the process requires human judgment, you need to exclude this from the percentage that can be automated in step 1. Also check that the process follows a predictable logic, even if it is a very complex one. Oftentimes a process seems not predictable, however analyzing it further, it actually is predictable once all scenarios are captured. The B4 workflow can deal with any number of scenarios. Lastly, the data needs to be structured. If the data source is in an Excel or other application, it is likely to be structured. However, if the source is from inside an email body, it may not be structured. We have various solutions for such situations, including some AI options. After completing this section, we can move to step 3, which is the technical assessment. This section looks at the complexity of the RPA project. RPA is very predictable in terms of implementation time, and therefore depending on some variables, we can see how much time roughly it would take to implement a process. Firstly, we can look at the different number of applications that are involved in the process. Generally, the more applications, the more complex the process. Next, how many process steps are involved. For example, logging into the application is one step, Downloading the document is step 2, opening another application is step 3, and uploading the document could be step 4. RPA bots can automate a process that it can only access using remote desktop and Citrix without having to be installed on the target system. While this is no problem for the bot, it does add some complexity to the project. OCR is the ability for the bot to read information that is visible on the screen but cannot be selected by the mouse, for example a name in an image. If OCR is a significant requirement in the project, you can also expect some additional complexity. Lastly, we can look at the stability of the applications we are automating with. Some applications are known for crashing on a regular basis or throwing up errors. In that case, the bot needs to deal with these exceptions. If the applications are generally stable, this would make the project less complex. Now that we have completed the first 3 sections, we are ready to move on to the cost and value part of the BPA calculator. If we open step 4, we can define some monthly cost estimates. For example, the cost of the B4 software and required hardware. You can define cost in different ways, but generally it makes sense to divide the complete system cost by the amount of processes that you could automate. So for example, if the server costs $200 per month, but you can comfortably automate 4 processes with it, then you should define $50 per month per process. Next, whether you get services or you look at internal time cost, there will be an implementation effort to every RPA project. We can count that as a one-time cost. Lastly, depending on the size of the process, you need to factor in some monthly maintenance into your calculation. With this section completed, let's open step 5, the cost of the manual process. Here we can define some indirect costs on a yearly basis. Depending on the process, the manual execution can have indirect but tangible costs associated with it. Any estimate of such costs can be added here. Lastly, we can open step 6, the value of the automation. In this section, you can analyze the value automating a process could bring to the organization. Let's look at the productivity gain first. The percentage of human value added activity is an important section. It looks at how much more valuable the time of people can be in other activities. For example, a service desk agent spending 8 hours a week doing data entry would likely double their value if these 8 hours would be spent helping customers. Other yearly estimates can be added or skipped depending on if you see a tangible connection to the process. Now, with all 6 sections completed, we can see the high-level results at the top. To look into the details, we can expand the analysis results section. Firstly, we can look at the cost of the manual process, providing you a total at the bottom. Next, we can look at the cost of the automation, providing you with the first year cost, which includes the implementation cost and then the ongoing cost. After this, we can open the results of the human value added calculation. Here you can see how many hours per month are 1, how much human value in terms of their direct cost is 1, and how much value in terms of the new activities is 1. Also, you can see how much in terms of full-time employee and what kind of skills are won by automating the process. Lastly, you can expand the results of the total added value of the automation, which takes all the numbers related to cost savings and value added into consideration. Looking at all the benefits of automation, you can see how over a 3-year period a relatively small process could benefit your organization. I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching.